Yesterday we covered 6 out of the 10 Upakkilesas, imperfections of insight, and today we are to talk about the remaining 4 imperfections of insight. And out of these 10 imperfections of insight, we also discuss piti passaddhi sukha, rapture or joy, tranquility or calm, and sukha, happiness or bliss. And we also talk about the consequences, positive consequences of these mental states. But of course, we are not reaching the climax of the practice. We are only experiencing the Dhamma delight, the delight of the Dhamma, Dhamma rati, which excels the Kama rati, senses delight. So because we are realizing Dhamma Sukha, happiness of the Dhamma, and Dhamma Piti, the joy of Dhamma. And we may be esteeming previously, we might be esteeming the sense of pleasures as the best that we can get by seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, desirable things, and we may be enjoying our sense impressions. And if we are thinking in this way, we are said to be deviating from the path. Our mind is not on the right track. And if by knowing that there is something else which excels this sense of delight, then we can pull this attention back on the track. And such is a kind of Adasamapanidi, self-regulation, right self-regulation, or conducting ourselves in the right way. If we are negligent by leaving our mind uncontrolled in respect of sensual pleasures, and instead of being negligent, we put our mind on the right track, that is on the track of Dhammarati, then our mind becomes properly molded, properly shaped. And by shaping this unshaped mind, and we are putting our mind on the right track, so that our mind becomes properly molded, properly cultivated. However, if one is still thinking that this Dhamma delight we keep stagnating in this Dhamma delight, then again we are still deviating somewhat from the path. Then it will not be adasamapanidi, not right self-regulation. If you are attached to this kind of Dhamma delight and will not advance forward, instead you will be just wavering around or revolving around this Dhamma delight, and also it's not commendable, not proper. Therefore, what you have gained, the Dhammarati that you have gained, should not be, so that one will not be deviated from the right path. This is very important. It is very important not to deviate from the right path. Today we shall continue on this subject. And this kind of Dhammarati is good. Of course it is good when one is feeling joy or rapture, piti. One will feel the whole body being pervaded from top to bottom. And in this way one feels very good, feeling of well-being, pervading through the body. So much so that one will not wish to disrupt, change one's sitting position. One will not have any more distracted mind, nor remorse, no restlessness or no remorse. Instead, one will feel calm, passaddhi, physically, mentally. And when sukha, happiness, enters, one will feel like entering a cool room from hot outside, so that one will feel the cool sensation running through the body. And at the higher insight knowledge, one will be observing the objects in a very subtle or gentle manner. You feel as though there is no object, whether an object is there or not there, we are not sure about it. Because the noting mind also is noting in a very subtle way, noting the faint object. Then we are knowing it in a very subtle way, so that when you come to this stage, your mind becomes compact and condensed, and you feel calm. It is goodness with calm feeling. They are all good things. However, so long as we are not free from arising and passing away, so long as we are not free from conditioned psychophysical phenomena, you cannot say that it is absolutely good or totally good. You are not free from the conditioned realm of conditioned things. Only when one comes to the extinction, stopping, stilling of formation, stilling of rising and passing away of conditioned things, we see this as bhavata to non-bhavata, abhavata, process to non-process. Then there is the extinction or cessation, good with extinction of mind and body. And at that moment, you'll be free from relevant, respective impurities, mental impurities or corruptions. They will not arise anymore. They are said to go into extinction. They have ceased to exist. Such is goodness with extinction. And if you have not come to this stage, the good feeling that we have discussed before, that is pervading happiness, pervading joy, and things like that, are not the real good ones. They are not genuinely good ones. And sometimes you may be calm, you may feel calm, goodness with calm feeling. That also is not a genuinely good one, not the real good one. Only when you come to this extinction, stillness of formations, stillness of the mind-body things, that we realize, or we can experience the real goodness. So when we practice in this way, and progressing along that path of insight knowledge, reaching at the maturity, going from the conditioned to the unconditioned, we realize the path and fruition knowledge of the noble ones, and experience the extinction, goodness with the extinction. When we come to this stage, we'll be free from the dangerous states, woeful states of loss, and would not be pulled away by the respective mental corruptions. And even if you are reborn in the human and deva world, you will live only maximum 7 existences, after which you totally go into extinction. And we have to work towards that goal. We talk about happiness or bliss. It is quite unusual feeling. And this kind of sukha, happiness or bliss, is of 2 kinds. One is known as Vedita Sukha, and another one is known as Avedita or Santi Sukha. Now, as regards the first one, Vedita Sukha, we glossed as sensuous happiness, sensuous happiness, and the other one is non-sensuous or non-sensate happiness. Now, as regards the first one, sensuous happiness, Vedita Sukha, as we say in the text, with passa, contact as condition, there arises feeling, vedana. So, by contacting with 6 sense objects, especially good sense objects, you feel good. Happiness comes in, especially when you encounter desirable objects. Your temptations, you encounter temptations. You feel, you enjoy it, and these sense objects such as good sight, good sound, taste, touch, and so on. All these things are temptations, desirable objects. When you come into contact with these things, you feel good, you feel happy. Such kind of happiness is known as Vedita Sukha, sensate happiness, happiness due to senses, caused by senses. And most of us feel happy by coming into contact with good objects. In fact, there is another kind of happiness which can be derived not without the contact with the 6 sense objects. That is known as non-sensuous or non-sensate happiness, called Avedita Sukha. So that one will not be shaken or agitated by these afflictive emotions such as raga, dosa. And this kind of happiness is something like that, not being moved or shaken by impurities. And such kind of happiness is happiness of extinction or happiness of stillness, known as Avedita Sukha, which is the genuine or real Sukha happiness. Now the yogis are practicing in order to reach that stage. Until and unless one comes to this stage, one may be thinking that these sensual pleasures, kama guna, sensual pleasures, are the real good ones. In fact, they are sensate or sensuous happiness, Vedita Sukha, kind of happiness which arises from contact with senses, from senses, sensuous happiness. Now, in the practice, one experiences Vipassana Sukha, joy or rapture, calm and happiness, all these things which we can experience in the course of the practice come under Vedita Sukha, sensate or sensuous happiness. But of course the only difference here is when you come to this stage, you are sure to reach Avedita Sukha, non-sensate happiness. That is the difference. As for sensual pleasures, if you indulge in sensual pleasures alone, without the practice of meditation, then you will be farther and farther removed or farther and farther away from this goal, that is Avedita Sukha, non-sensate happiness. When one comes into contact with good or desirable objects, there is bound to be kama rati, that sensuous delight of sense objects. And even with the practice of Dhamma, if we are experiencing Dhamma rati, that is Dhamma delight, as different from sensuous delight, such as mindfulness, concentration and knowledge, one is bound to experience Dhamma delight, Dhamma rati. Or whatever rati, whatever delight it may be, whether it is sensuous delight or Dhamma delight. If one lacks sati and knowledge, mindfulness and knowledge, there's bound to be craving or clinging. Because in accordance with the textual saying, Virana Pichya Dana, feeling as conditioned, there arises craving. And one will go on craving. desirable objects, clinging desirable objects. And not only that, one will think that I am feeling it, I am experiencing it. In this way, there are bound to be the impurities, mental corruptions and unwholesome consciousness are bound to arise. And that is in accordance with the saying, unmindfulness allows impurities or kilesas. So if one is not mindful of every arising, whether good or bad, in this case even a good feeling, good objects, this one will crave from feeling. As the saying goes, Vedana Pachayatana, with feeling as condition, there arises craving. Now because one is noting every arising object to sustain one's mindfulness, and every time this piti, pasati, sukha, rapture, calmness and happiness arise, one understands, comprehends as impermanent, they arise and pass away. We are knowing the realities, knowing the true nature of the objects, and in this way one will be free from impurities, as the saying which is in reverse of the previous saying. Mindfulness eradicates impurities. The first one is unmindfulness allows impurities, and this one, mindfulness, eradicates impurities. So there will be no craving, no raga, no lust. Hence, when we are crossing over from Vedana to Tanha, feeling to craving or attachment, we activate mindfulness, sati. With mindfulness, one will be noting and knowing. The yogis will be able to practice the sati. With sati panya, noting and knowing, replacing the gap between Vedana and Tanha, or not to allow this transformation from Vedana to Tanha. As soon as one feels, one activates mindfulness and knowledge, noting and knowing, then there will be no craving from feeling. And if there is no craving, there will be no clinging, that is intense craving, and it will not lead to new existences. In this way, we are said to be stopping the round of dependence. As we discussed yesterday, as we cultivate this Dhamma rati, Dhamma delight, by practicing systematically, we are experiencing by ourselves, this is a personal realization, we cultivate or intensify faith and confidence, sada, by which our mind becomes extraordinarily clear, and the mind which is associated with Vipassana, insight practice, becomes extraordinarily clear. And then at this stage, one will cultivate resolute faith with resolution, which arises by leaps and bounds. Then one will exert courage. Courage is virya, energy. It is pegahita virya. Pegahita means uplifting. Uplifting means not allowing anything to stagnate or go down. Instead it will go up and up. Such is pegahita virya, uplifting virya. And there will be zeal together with the virya. And then the energy which is associated with insight also will be very strong, instead of being slack or lax or sluggish. And there won't be any excesses, such as there won't be excessive zeal which will cause distraction, restlessness, and scattering, known as audacca, because you are too much, because of a strong desire, overzealous. When you are overzealous also, you can become restless. Your mind can scatter, audacca. And nor will there be any distraction because of slackness of energy. So in this way, this kind of energy is uplifting energy. In order to reach the fulfilled energy, paripurna virya, that is energy towards fulfillment of the goal. So at this stage, the energy will not go down, it will not stagnate, instead it will go up and up without being slack, and it will arise by building momentum. So much so that some yogis would report at interviews that before they had to exert energy in order to note the object. Now they don't have to exert excessive energy. Without exertion, the objects becomes noted. So much is the potential effectiveness of energy. The effectiveness of energy. And another imperfection of insight is upattana, that is noting the mindfulness which can note every arising object. It is equivalent to patthana of satipatthana. In fact, it is, in essence, it is the deep mindfulness which is associated with insight. And also it is given as upakkilesas, fully connected. When one's duty mind is fully connected to the object, this intense mindfulness or steadfast mindfulness is also called supatita. So in this way, the mindfulness becomes very steadfast, just like a stone post which is erected, which is built into the ground, which is unshakable. It is made of stone, and it is erected, and it stands, and it is in the ground, so that it becomes unshakable. So just like this unshakable post, stone post, your mindfulness becomes very steadfast. So much so that as the objects to be noted arise like a current is flowing along, proceeding. And as much as the objects are proceeding, your noting mind also is following these objects to note them automatically. And a text is given this analogy. It is just like when the fish are coming down or escaping from the narrow stream, the heron, which is living on this fish, will just pick up one after another so easily, instead of looking for fish as usual, because the fish are coming down by themselves, one by one. So the heron also is just, it needs to just pick up one fish after another. So too with the steadfast mindfulness, it can note every arising object without any difficulty. And any object which you intend to note will be noted immediately. And so much so that the noting mind seems to enter the objects of attention with good exertion of virya, energy, and in this way you are noting and knowing every object to be noted. And also another analogy is given here, that it's just like a person who possesses deva chakku, that is the eye of a divine eye. A person who possesses a divine eye will be able to see other worlds very clearly. As some yogis I won't report, sometimes they will report that in the course of the practice, their mindfulness is so strong, so good, that all these experiences when they were of their youth, and even their experiences in the mother's womb, could be seen like watching a movie. And some would even remember past lives. So much is the strength, the steadfastness of mindfulness, the deep. And another, the imperfection of insight. Upakkilesas, Vipassana Upakkilesas, is upekka, given as equanimity or balanced attitude. When by equanimity, upekka, you are able to note things in a very comfortable manner without too much exhaustion of energy, nor without any exhaustion, nor slackness. Because initially you have built up this potential. As a result of the potential practice, energy, you are able to note every arising object. And this upekka, equanimity, is associated. It arises together with the insight knowledge when you are seeing the fast arising and passing away of psychophysical phenomena. Every time a new object arises, then your noting mind goes to note it without being without hastiness, and you are able to do it with comfort and in an equanimous manner, in a balanced attitude, neither too much energy nor slackness. You are able to note. Such is the extraordinary quality at this stage. And the analogy given in the old days is like a target practice. When you are shooting an arrow towards the target to hit the bullseye, you try to do it without excessive energy, without the excessive exertion of energy. You are doing it in a comfortable way so as to hit the bullseye. And so too, when you are noting every arising object, you can note easily without too much exertion of energy. Such is upekka, equanimity. Just like the saying, practice makes perfect, because you are skilled in target practice, and whenever you shoot at the target, automatically you are able to hit the bullseye very easily. The kanti is the last one. It is subtle attachment or general craving for the Dhamma, in respect of Dhamma. And such as one is attached to illuminations, rapture, calmness, happiness, and all these things one becomes attached to all these things unconsciously, in a subtle way, in a general way. And such things can also happen. And all of these 10 imperfections of insight, the former ones are all good ones. They are not unwholesome. And the only unprofitable, unwholesome one is this tanha, craving, the kanti, craving for these experiences. If one craves these things, then one will not progress. Hence, the nikanti has been given as one of the impurities or one of the imperfections of insight. It is worthy of note to remember the Buddha's sayings, the two things, namely neither should one go outside nor stagnate inside. These two things. Then if one follows this advice, one is bound to realize happiness. Now going outside or going out means when one is thinking about desirable objects, especially the impurities, objects which may cause impurities, one will be thinking about it. Then sort of noting whatever arises. If one is stagnating in this way, one is thinking about these things, one is overcome by these things, such as if there's a desirable object, one is craving these objects, one is wishing these objects, having greed, and that also is going out. It is like going out or going outside. And when one encounters an undesirable object, there will be anger, aversion. This also is said to be going out. You are going out if you are overcome by this aversion. And if you are not knowing the intrinsic nature of these objects to be noted, then you will be deluded. Your mind will become cloudy, and there will be no clarity of mind. And in this way also you are said to be going out. Or you are said to be going out. So if one is not noting at the very moment of arising, that is while you are stretching, bending, and so on, and if you are not noting at the very moment, then you will be overcome by these impurities. So one has to be very careful about this. In accordance, one should be able to follow this advice by the Buddha, so that if you are able to note whatever arises, instead of letting the mind go out or stagnate inside, you are bound to purify your mind so as to be able to cultivate insight knowledge, beginning with the discernment of mind and body. And especially when you come to the stage of Uddiyabhya Jnana, knowledge of fast arising and passing away of objects, you are bound to experience the Dhamma delight, Dhamma rati, which excels manifold the Kama rati, sensuous delight. Then you will take more interest in Dhamma rati, Dhamma delight. So you will crave the Dhamma delight. You go in pursuit of Dhamma delight. So that you are, at this point, you are not to be attached to any object that is stagnating inside, and not to be overcome by thoughts that is going outside. So while if you are stagnated, if you are attached to some desirable objects while you are in the course of the practice, especially when you have a good feeling, you may be attached to it, and such is tantamount to stagnating inside or staying inside. Like the case of a traveler, when he or she is traveling to reach his or her destination, and in the transit, if he or she finds something desirable and become attached to this and stays there, then he or she will never reach the destination. So it is good advice for the yogis to note whatever arises. So one should not be attached to good feelings, nor be overcome by thoughts, and one should not stagnate inside nor go outside. Instead, one should note whatever arises with sustained mindfulness. So this is something for the yogis to be careful about. That one should not be attached in the course of the practice of mindfulness. In accordance with that saying, one should note whatever arises, so as not to allow these impurities to arise in one stream of consciousness, following the advice of the Buddha, the first advice of the Buddha. This, as much as one does that, One will be conducting one's mind in the right way, or one will be regulating one's mind correctly. Right self-regulation. Atasamapaditi. And when one realizes the Dhammarati, one may stagnate inside, so all you have to do is just activate mindfulness, and if at all craving arises, and if at all craving arises, and if at all